places in the world that have really unique and distinct animals. They're more often than not islands, because those animals have evolved separately from other places in the world.
What we are doing successfully is trapping to a large enough scale that we've got the stoat and ferret numbers down to low enough that the kiwi can survive and do well on their own.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Rata. I'm so excited to be chatting to the incredible Paul and Rawiri. How are you guys today?
Awesome. Enjoying the Poneki sunshine in paradise.
It's actually an incredible day here, so we're very lucky. Now at Voiceofaroha, we always do this thing with our guests where we say, if we were to give you guys the mic, how would you introduce yourselves?
Ko Paul Ward tōku ingoa. Ko te kaihanga hou o te Capital Kiwi Project. So my name is Paul Ward and I'm the founder, the builder of the Capital Kiwi Project.
Tēnā tātou, ko Rawiri Walsh tōku ingoa, he uri tēnei o Ngāti Haumia, me Ngāti Te Whiti, me Ngāti Tāwhirikura hoki. I'm Rawiri Walsh. I whakapapa to the hapu from Wellington City. And I'm the Kaimanaki Kiwi, so I get paid to run around and do things that everyone wants to, but I'm lucky enough to do.
Kia ora guys, it is so lovely to have you to the studio and to have your incredible stories. For those who don't know anything about Capital Kiwi, what is it?
Yeah, I guess super short version, it's the kaupapa, the mission to restore Kiwi, so our icon, our taonga, to the wild, in the backyard of Wellington City, and it's been going for 8 or 9 years now. And Kiwi have probably been absent from the hills surrounding our capital city for probably around 150 years. And so, after doing a heap of work, which we'll talk about in a second, we were able to return our first Kiwi back in late 2022, and then over the next 2.5 years, we've released 209 Kiwi back on those southwestern hills, and yeah, they're going sweetly.
And just for I guess a lot of your audience who might not have the understanding for the backdrop of why the Kiwi aren't there in the first place, and it's because in the late 1800s. The Acclimatisation Society, having introduced rabbits, and the rabbit numbers ballooned out. So then they introduced mustelids from Europe, so that being the ferret and the stoat, and they and the weasel, but instead of controlling the rabbits, they ran around and ate all our birds. So they, in particular, the ferret, which is the largest one, can kill an adult kiwi. But the stoat is the one that does all the damage, and it does the damage not to an adult bird, not to the egg, but to the chicks until they can reach that 1 kilo mark. And so they do enough damage that they cause the birds to go locally extinct here.
Should we have a go at doing a Kiwi Conservation 101?
Yep.
Yeah, so Aotearoa, New Zealand is kind of an incredible example of island evolution. So if you think of places in the world that have really unique and distinct animals, they're more often than not islands, because those animals have evolved separately from other places in the world. So
Galapagos,
Madagascar, Australia, the big famous example with all those weird platypus, wombats, kangaroos, koalas, and in Aotearoa we're basically a land of manu, a land of birds. And we evolved with only 2 species of land mammals. They were both bats. But effectively, our birds came to occupy all the niches in the ecosystem that in other places of the world are occupied by squirrels and cows and mice and rats. All those animals here are birds. And so we have...
and bugs.
And bugs. and lizards too, and mokomoko as well. Yeah. And... so they're very unique. In fact, one famous ecologist at the end of the 20th century said if you want to study life on another planet, probably the closest place that you'll find to study that on our planet is in Aotearoa. So we have a lot of weird and wonderful animals and birds, and probably the most weird and the most wonderful and the most unique of them all is the kiwi. And ever since people came here 800 or so years ago, first Māori, our Polynesian explorers, and then more recently the European settlers, the kiwi has held a special place in terms of our sense of belonging here as people. So for in Te Ao Māori, it's part of key stories like when Tane, when the forest was under threat and Tane had to find manu who were willing to help him save the forest, and the kiwi was the manu that was. Do you
want to just tell that story in full?
Yeah, you go.
No, you go. You're not.
And it's so the forest was being under threat, like as a lot of our world is now in terms of environmental terms. And the trees were not in a good state. They were unhealthy. They were being eaten. They were attacked by bugs and disease. And Tane Mahuta, who's the god of the forest, the atua of the forest, went and asked all the manu if they would want to help him, and the tui said, nah, not, it was too proud and cocky, and the kiriru was probably drunk or sleeping off its big feed that it just had.
Yeah. So the tui, when it said no, Tane Mahuta grabbed him and stuck the white feathers on his korokoro. So the white feathers on the chest. So we look at it now and we say, oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. But in Te Ao Māori, that's a mark of shame. So that's Tane Mahuta saying, you're a coward. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so the kiwi was the only manu at this stage. The kiwi could fly, and was the only manu that said, "Oh, I'll do that." And he, knowing that he'd have to go into the darkness and into the night, and kind of qualities that we think that we relate to as people too, like hard work and loyalty and resilience, and as a reward, Tane gave the kiwi kind of eminent status as a manu, and there's other stories as Pākehā settlers arrived and we were looking for symbols to represent us as a new country and a new group of people. It was kiwi that we kept turning to. So when our first sports teams, our rugby teams and our league teams went overseas to beat the Brits, and when cartoons were drawn of it, it was a picture of a lion getting beaten up by a kiwi. And then when our armed forces were defending our country overseas, it was the kiwi that became the symbol. And so as an animal, it's had a special relationship between I guess the place and the people who live here and our sense of belonging here. And ultimately we're known as Kiwis. Like if we go overseas, we're known as Kiwis, and our money is the currency is the kiwi. And so in a way they are us. So for a long time people thought like Kiwi are quite resilient. One of the reasons why this was chosen as our symbol is they're resilient, tough, adaptable animals, especially a big, we've got a picture of Anihiura here, who's our queen, and she's got, which way am I pointing? Okay to you? Yeah. And she's got this she's about 3.5, 4 kilos. She's got these enormous claws, mati. She's got a big long nutu beak that's too long for the kiwi beak measuring calipers. Wow. So she's kind of like a supermodel of the kiwi world. So as an adult, they're tough, resilient animals, and they'll defend their burrows, they'll defend their territories, and you can see why we as people why we found those qualities to be admirable ones. And then actually we should have brought along an egg, but at the egg stage they've got an enormous egg. It's the largest egg in proportion to the mother's body size. And it's not much smaller than an emu or an ostrich egg, and those predators that Rawiri was talking about that we brought with us as people, they can't open their mouth up enough to puncture that egg, and often there'll be a big fighting claw from the dad, or depending on the species, the mum and the burrow defending that egg. So they get a tick at the egg stage, they get a tick at the adult stage. Where they get hammered is in between hatching and getting up to that weight where they can look after themselves. And it took us a long time as a people to figure out what was happening, because in lots of places around the country, like Northland, the Bay of Plenty, Taranaki, people were still hearing and seeing kiwi right up into the 70s and 80s. And often what they didn't realise, though, was that they were those adult birds that they were hearing or seeing. And because a kiwi can live 40, 50 years plus, what we were seeing was a slow decline towards extinction. So when those adult birds died, there was nothing coming up to replace them. And they didn't learn until the 90s and the 2000s, when they were able to study kiwi chicks and get transmitters and trail cameras on those chicks, that what was happening was, in areas where there was no pest control, up to 95% of chicks will not make it to that weight where they can look after themselves and live long lives on the hills. So at that point, it became clear to conservationists and New Zealanders that we had to do something, or we were going to lose the animal that we're named after, which I don't think any of us would or any New Zealanders would find tolerable. So there was kind of two conservation responses, and one was to remove the eggs and then incubate them and raise them in predator-free environments until they were at that weight, which is around 1 kilo, where they could look after themselves. And that has been pretty successful on a bird-by-bird basis, but it's also expensive and invasive, and you're severing, I guess it's a whakapapa connection, isn't it? Like you're severing a connection between a chick and its parents. So for all sorts of reasons, we wanted to do another response, which is reducing the impact of those introduced predators in the wild, so that kiwi chicks could be hatched and born as naturally as they have done for millions and millions of years out on those hillsides. So
I'll jump in, because you've got ONE, which is Operation Nest Egg, which is when they would either go into the wild and collect the eggs. So you can imagine it's a little bit in line with the stolen generation, from a certain perspective. But for these birds, they weren't going to survive. So it was a case of this was the only way to enable them to survive. And then what we've also done is taken birds and put them out on offshore islands. So the likes of Kapiti and Mana. We don't have kiwi in the Wellington harbour on Matu, but it's too small. But Kapiti and Mana, where they didn't have any of those pests, and they were able to put those birds so they can thrive. And then more recently is the likes of Zealandia, Maunga Tautari, Rotokari, which are those sanctuaries where they've built a fence, gotten rid of everything from the inside, and then put birds in there so they can thrive and grow. And so, there's ONE, offshore islands, and now sanctuaries. And so where Capital Kiwi comes in is kind of on the back of those operations. And now what we are doing successfully is trapping to a large enough scale that we've got the stoat and ferret numbers down to low enough that the kiwi can survive and do well on their own.
Yeah, so we've got a trap network that runs all the way from Parewhero, from Red Rocks at the bottom of the North Island, all the way up to Aotearoa. And it's over 24,000 hectares, so it's roughly the same size as Abel Tasman National Park. But it's just about 80% of that area is on privately owned land, so farms, forestry, our power infrastructure, suburbs on the edge of the city, and it's part of, I guess it's part of a bigger Wellington story. Like, we're sitting here in Poneke, and I grew up here in the 90s, and there was basically, if I wanted to go and see native wildlife or native birds, I had to go somewhere else. So I had to go to a sanctuary, like Rawiri was saying, like Kapiti Island, or Pukaha Mount Bruce, where they've removed those predators And so, my experience growing up in Johnsonville, just to the north of the city, was blackbirds and sparrows and possums at night and rabbits.
Oh, yep.
And that
Do you want to explain why that's bad? again for our audience.
Yeah, for the audience. So they're all introduced species, and what it means is that the animals that live here, like kiwi, like tui, like kiriru, our pigeon, this is their only home. And so all those other species that we're talking about, they have homes elsewhere. I guess is that a simple way of explaining it? So
if you think about a place like Turkey, when you look at the world map, it's the crossroads. So everything and anything can reach there by land, and New Zealand is the opposite. You can't get here by land. So everything that was here naturally was already here, and then humans have introduced other things. So things like the ship rat and the Norway rat came with Captain Cook, and the cats that he brought on board as well. Maitupuna brought the kiore, which is the Pacific rat, is another name for it, and then as well as pukeko, and then we had the Acclimatisation Society that brought the mustelids and the possums and the rabbits and things like that.
We brought all sorts. They tried to bring zebra here, camels,
Really? Wow. Wow.
all sorts of stuff, and some of them didn't. Even possums took quite a few goes before they before they survived here. But they have some of those animals who have a right to exist and live as well, have had a devastating impact on the animals that only live here and are very special to here and to us in our sense of belonging. So in a way, looking after them shows that that we're able to be guardians of the place in which we live. I guess it's kind of a I suppose you describe it as a duty, and in pretty simple terms, like if I went and talked to a room full of 100 Kiwis, New Zealanders, of people, and said, who thinks we should look after the Kiwi? 99 or 100 hands are going to go up, and if your hand doesn't go up, you're probably going to get exported. But but it is it's a way of delivering guardianship, I suppose, of looking after the place where we live. But and so in Wellington, the capital city, there were lots and lots of birds right up until the end of the 19th century, and lots of our place names here, like Karori is Kaha Ngā Rori, and the place of many snares, so the place where you go and catch birds for food. And even in the butchers in Wellington in the 1870s, there was an ad for kaka parrots and weka, which is one of our native rails, by the barrow load. So the birds were like a food source, and we had a strong relationship with them. And then over the next century or so, they disappeared. They were gone, and through the impact of losing their homes through the loss of habitat, but also the impact of those pest animals that we brought with us. So Wellington has had this really amazing change in the last 20 or so years or generation, and a lot of those birds have come back to the city. And birds like the tui, our beautiful songbird, the kiriru, the big pigeon, kaka, the really cheeky, boisterous parrot. And there's a few reasons for that. One is Zealandia, the fenced sanctuary that is just a few kilometres from us, near the centre of the city. But also the control of possums, which were an animal that was brought for fur in the late 19th century, and that meant that all the food that the possums were eating was now available for our native birds to eat again, because we'd taken away that pressure. And then the third part of that, this kind of incredible bounce back in Wellington, was a real shift from conservation being something that a council worker or a Department of Conservation ranger did somewhere else, like a national park or a remote island, to something that we do as Wellingtonians in the place where we live, and that's our whānau, our families, our mountain bikers and trail runners, and the local four-wheel drive club, and our farmers, and it's something that we do in our backyards and in our paddocks and in our reserves as Wellingtonians. And so those three things kind of created this context for a project like Capital Kiwi to be imagined. Like it probably would have been hard to imagine it without some of those animals that had come back into the city, some of those birds. And
it was an element of what's next as well, right? So when you were in Waimapihi.
Yeah.
So, so we were having the kaka, we were having the tui and everything else doing really well. And so Zealandia do have kiwi inside their sanctuary, but they're in the more vulnerable kiwi puku, so they're slightly smaller. And to have, we would need slightly different conditions again to enable them to roam free. And so that's when it was a case of what's next, how can we have kiwi outside the fence? Yeah,
and we were doing work in that space and right up the end of Willis Street and outside the fence in the wild, and some of those birds like kaka were doing really well, the big bold parrots that we can see flying around the skies. And we sat there and thought, God, if you can have kaka back in the city, and I remember seeing one for the first time when I came back from overseas and was running away from nappies. And I thought, where on earth did that bird come from? It was so out of... It was like seeing a takahe or a kakapo running around Parliament lawn or something. And that was kind of a motivation to get involved, was to look after... to see if it was possible for those birds to live in the wild alongside us again as people. And we had a kaka nest that over 3 years, I think, produced about 22 or 23 chicks out in the city. And that led us to think, God, if we can have a bird like kaka back, can we have kiwi back? And we asked a couple of older veterans of New Zealand conservation. There was one guy, Scratch, Paul Jansen, and we said, do you reckon we can have kiwi back? And Scratch said, yeah, why not? And, and it was kind of that giving us permission to get on with it. And it was... so the question was, if we could have kiwi back living on our hills, then should we have kiwi back living on our hills? And I think that's a pretty easy question. It's like we're Kiwis, and so the answer was yes. And then I think the provocation was, well, let's get on with it then. And the getting on with it was going out and really building key relationships with the groups that we needed to make a home for kiwi again on those western hills of Wellington, and yeah, so that there's three groups that are kind of like the platforms that the project sits on, and they're our communities. So in particular, the Mākara community, where most of the birds have been released, but also the people of Wellington living in the city. So our communities. Our iwi, both mana whenua, who are our iwi here, but also the iwi that have gifted kiwi to come back to this place. So Rawiri has had to build work on building relationships between our iwi here and the iwi who are guardians or kaitiaki of those birds that had to come here. And then the third group that's really important are the landowners that we needed their permission to access those farms, those forests, to put traps on their land, to provide that network of protection, so that those kiwi chicks can hatch and get up to that fighting weight. And sometimes we describe that network, it's 4,600 traps across that 24,000 hectares. And it's a network of traps, but it's a network of relationships. And part of the project's challenge is a technical one, which is reducing the impact of those pests enough so that kiwi can thrive. But it's also a social challenge, which is basically reconnecting us as people with that animal, and that involved going into farm wool sheds, onto marae, village halls. Probably for 3 or 4 years, and 2 or 3 years, and on weekends, after work, and we asked those people, would you like to have Kiwi back? And the answer was, a near unanimous yeah. And so I think one of the things that's quite special about the work that's been done is it's genuinely grown from the bottom up. Like, we don't own any land. We don't have any regulatory powers. We're not a council. We're not the Department of Conservation. And all that support that has enabled Kiwi to be returned is voluntary and it's willing. And I think the groups of people that have come together to enable it it's quite a special thing. And if you are able to come to a porphyry, to a welcome for the Kiwi, I'd encourage you to do so, because it's there'll always be tears, and often they'll be from quite surprising places. Might be the old farmer who has a bit of onion in his eye, or and I think it's because for one of the reasons anyway is we're living in a time of substantial challenges in the world, and I think people are able to see that one of the things that's really powerful was what's been delivered in the return of the Kiwi has been delivered because of people working together, and I think it's the Kiwi is this almost this like a Trojan bird or a Trojan manu that people can agree it's a common cause that people can agree upon. And for lots of us who are, we grow up knowing ourselves as Kiwis. We watch our sports team and go, go Kiwi and things. But for most of us, we've never seen a Kiwi, probably maybe in a dimly lit zoo nocturnal house, but almost certainly not in the wild. And probably more international tourists have experienced Kiwi in the wild than we have as people, which is kind of fundamentally wrong if you think about it. And so I suppose when at those welcomes, when the Kiwi do come out to meet the people, a female Kiwi like Aotearoa here is a big bird, like 3.5-4 kilos, and I think people are quite awed by. But people think of Kiwi as these little, like, basically furry emojis, or and partly that's because of that Operation Nest Egg that we talk about. One of the images that a lot of people will see of Kiwi, like on our social feeds, and are these newborn Kiwi chicks, and they look kind of defenceless and like ridiculously cute and things, but they don't see the bird that we would have for hundreds of years engaged with, and we've. The Kiwi call is it's like a kind of raucous screech in the night, like something like a Viking.
And most of any Kiwi handlers that have been doing it for a while, their hands are covered in scars. Because you're reaching into a burrow, and sometimes they don't want you to reach in and grab them, and they can give you a kick or a whack, and they can tear open your flesh. So. I think, it doesn't take long to search online and you'll find videos of Kiwi giving a possum a hiding. So they as an adult, they are quite strong and quite resilient, and they they lead with the feet, which is quite comical.
Yeah, people think is it their beak that's their weapon and things, but it's those big fighting claws. So it's been a really special kaupapa to be involved in, and I think it's again, when you're at those events where you see people who've checked trap lines for decades. You've got landowners who've been on some of those pieces of land for 6 or 7 or 8 generations, and I think for them to actually put an animal that's so associated with us in terms of its identity back into the ground is a really powerful. It's a powerful thing, and. That's probably the end of my spiel. That's the end of that 2 sips of coffee.
Any last words on that incredible story, Rauri?
For us as an iwi, it's enabled us to be more active, out on the whenua, not just in the city. So it's amazing how many times people will come out west and they turn and say, "Oh, my granddad used to shear out here," or and there's just always a connection. And that's from people from as far as Waikato, not just people living here in the city. When Paul mentioned both the gifting iwi and the receiving iwi, So for us as Taranaki Whānui and Ngāti Toa, we're the receivers, and we've had birds gifted from Ngāti Henewai from Otorahanga, as well as Ngāti Koroki Kahukura in Maunga Tautari and Ngāti Tupai at Rotokare. And one of the things that was, so my introduction into this space, into iwi negotiations, was to go up and to do a tono. Traditionally that would have been done for a wife or for a husband or for whāngai, might have gone and asked for a child if I couldn't have any myself, and we were going up to tono for kiwi. Obviously it wouldn't have would be a miracle to trap and then all of a sudden have kiwi. They weren't going to arrive on their own, so we did have to go and get them from somewhere else. So that's what we did. We went and did a tono to Maunga Tautari, and it was it was pretty special to be a part of. We were challenged. It wasn't to be myself, the people on the ground. It was to be the leaders, rangatira ki rangatira. So that's what we did, and we actually did it in partnership with our whanaunga from Taranaki Maunga, who were also seeking to have birds placed on the mountain there. So that's what we did, and it was all over in half an hour. And then I managed to slip back into the bush gear and get out and go chase some kiwi. So yeah, it was pretty special.
One of the really special things about the first group of birds that came from Otorahanga, from Ngāti Henewai, was our Queenie Anahera. She was rescued in 1980 from a pine harvest in East Taranaki, in a forest called Te Wera Forest, and she was an adult bird then, so she's at least 47 years old, 48 years old. And she spent the next 40 years at a kiwi house, so basically a zoo in Otorahanga. And so when she came to us, excuse me, she had great-grandkid children whose great-grandparents had looked after, who were the kaitiaki of Anahera. And I think that really drove home for us. It was almost like we were receiving a member of a family. So it was a really beautiful and powerful moment to embed the duty we now had to to continue to look after these birds out on the hills. And I think one of the other aspects that was really pleasing recently was Anahera is in her late 40s, and her partner Nuvo was around 10 years old. We didn't know whether they were going to stay together out back in the wild, let alone breed. And they had an egg in the first season that was infertile, and we were like, oh, she's still got it, but she was essentially wild again after 40 years, spending 40 years in captivity. But last year, or this season, they hatched their second egg hatched. And Ngārangi was released a couple of months ago, having made that weight around 1 kilo, where he or she can fight off stoats. So it was a really, I think for us as a team, it was a really incredible moment, really, to realise that for most of us, Ngārangi will likely outlive us out on the hills now. So if you think about that. The past, the present, and the future. It was a really beautiful moment.
It's such a beautiful story. It's absolutely incredible, and I think you guys have done an incredible job summarising these intense parts of conservation, kind of Aotearoa's history. But also, I'm just really, really touched, like how you guys talk about kiwi as our taonga, but also seeing the way that you're kind of bringing not just kiwi back to kind of Aotearoa, but also kind of these relationships of this fundamentally what it means to be a kiwi in New Zealand, and kind of bringing that connection and that love and to ourselves and to our whenua as well. In a
way, again, if I can reflect it back to 2025, like a lot of things drive us apart. We're in our like niches on social media, and what Kiwi do is bring people together, and to get those networks of protection out across those landscapes, like for someone like predator-free Wellington, they need a relationship every 15 metres to get a rat trap or rat device into across that landscape. For us to get those 4,600 traps out, we needed to build relationships across that landscape. And so it meant that, like I said, we're not a council, we don't own land, we can't go out there and tell people what to do. We had to build those relationships with them and get their permission to do it. And I think, as a model of showing what can be done through working together, it's been pretty inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the relationships we have is with Vera Noa Hetit, who basically descends from a long line of weavers. Quite well known for weaving kahu kiwi, which are the kiwi cloaks, and she has never made a kahu kiwi herself, but she brought the kahu kiwi that her great grandmother and her mother and her grandmother brought to our pohiri when the kiwi have arrived, and she made it very clear that she didn't want to be weaving anytime soon with these birds. She was like, I want them to be alive, I want them to be on the hills. And then there was Paul and I going, yeah, but when they do die, and that's the whole thing, is that that's the another connection, and it's for us as Māori to utilise these birds, to have them thriving on the hills and be alive, but when they do pass, to then go on and to bring them back to life in these cloaks.
Yeah, and it's a form, it's an art form, a beautiful art form that is made possible through abundance. Yeah.
It is so beautiful, and what incredible mahi from you guys, just absolutely extraordinary, kind of bringing this real life miracle of, not having these mana here, and then now we have Kiwi back. So huge ups to you guys. It's absolutely incredible. For those listening who are inspired by this and want to get involved, how can they find you? How can they join? How can they be part of this movement to keep helping bring our Kiwi back?
We're capital.kiwi on Instagram, Capital Kiwi on Facebook. If you're an aspiring TikToker, get in touch. Check out the website, capitalkiwi.co.nz. Basically, get out there, get on the hills, get connected with our nature. As Dave Attenborough said, if this is probably not an exact quote, but if we don't experience our taio, our nature, we won't have the motivation to look after it. So get out there and bring these things back into our lives that are special to us.
If you have one word of inspiration to, could be just anyone who's maybe interested in conservation but maybe isn't going to go be helping trap predators or go be a kiwi carer. What piece of advice, really like the taio one, what piece of advice would you give to our audience who are kind of watching and might want to get more involved?
Well, for me, I wasn't always in conservation. I used to be a winemaker. So ditched one passion job for another. But this one, I feel like I'm certainly a lot happier and able to, be quite fulfilled and rewarding. Although people do love wine too. For me, I think, if people don't want to do the traps, then they can do, there's plenty of other things, planting trees is another one. Wellington communities are really, really strong and we have lots of groups around that do that. But right down to just keeping your dog on lead when you are walking in areas where they might be. Not just kiwi out there. We've got kaka, obviously, who love to nest in hollows on the ground. We have korora out on our coasts. So Wellington has a strong and thriving korora population. But
they're our little blue penguins.
But the two major things that threaten them are not the same pests that we talked about earlier. It's people's pet dogs and cars at night. So so just doing things like slowing down at night around our coast and keeping our dogs on lead in areas that we know that they are.
Awesome.
Like Rawiri, I'm not an ecologist. I'm not a dock ranger. I came from a film and TV background. So I love it if we restore our connection with these animals so much that they are a part of our songs, our movies, our poetry again, And, it's incredibly special we just had a landowner behind Makara School send us in a clip last night of a Kiwi duet, a male calling to a female, and we're at that school is so lucky because they've literally got Kiwi in their backyards, and if you go to that school now and we ask them, do you know what a Kiwi sounds like? All their hands go up, and if we went to a school somewhere else like Newlands or Miramar, you wouldn't get probably a single hand go up, and so yeah, I think there's it's not just pulling smelly rotten things out of traps. It's through our art forms, through our communities, and
in fact, you don't really want the trapper telling the story half the time, because it's going to be something that won't sell very well.
Thank you so much. I've got one last question, and this is a question that the previous guest wrote. So on voiceofaroha, we will give you the opportunity to ask a question to the next guest. We won't let you know who it is. You'll have to go watch the YouTube if you want to find out. And our question for today, we've got two questions actually, I think. Well, the first is, what was the last multicultural event you attended, and what was your key takeaway from the event? And the other question is, how many languages do you speak?
A fortnight ago, I was very fortunate to go to Ngāti Tama and Ngāti Mutunga in North Taranaki, and where they hosted some Aboriginal whānau from around Melbourne.
Wow, yep.
And they had brought them over to enable them to carry out their traditional practices of hunting possums.
Wow.
So it's not that they don't have possums in Australia, they've got plenty, but the laws that are in place mean that they aren't allowed to carry out their traditions. So they came over and we went hunting. And so we were skinning and pelting possums, and they were taking obviously all the pelts home with them, right through to one of the artists, and him and I were cutting off the jawbones and boiling down the jaws because he was going to use them to chisel to create the artwork on the pelt.
Wow.
So it was just phenomenal because the more we talked, the more we realised how similar things were. Where we have tāmoko, in the Pacific and in Aotearoa, where we cut the skin and then rub ink in, whereas in Australia he was using a pelt and he was carving on the pelt and then rubbing ink in. And it was just quite phenomenal. The more time you spend together, it's not the differences, it's the similarities, and things just have a different name or a different title. And for me, I speak English poorly, and I'm on my real journey. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Am I allowed to give two answers?
Yeah.
As a proud Newtonian, I'm probably going to make celebrate the Newtown Festival, which is, I think, also a proud Wellingtonian, I guess, like a melting pot of all the different flavours that make up our city. But also I've got a bit of another story to tell too. A friend of Rawiri and I's, Tim Park, who runs Aotearoa Wilson's bush in Wellington, which I would encourage anyone to go and have a wander around and see as an example of the old ngahere, the old forest. And he hosted, similar to Rawiri, hosted a group from Japan a year or so ago, who were interested in learning about raranga, about weaving, and about our relationship, about te ao Māori, but also about the relationship to the forest here. And then he was lucky enough to be invited to go to their celebrations at the moment around, I suppose it's their version of Matariki and stuff, isn't it? I'd have to find out. But I've been getting through my, every day I'm getting up photos of the experiences and the things that Tim's learning. And like Rawiri was saying, I'm like, wow, this is like basically the same as, or very similar symbol to. So I guess I'd echo that same point, that even though we have differences that give us our identity and make us unique, there are things that bind us across those cultures as well. So what was the other question?
How many languages do you speak?
I suppose English and a smattering of travelling languages as a tourist, and on a much earlier stage of a te reo Māori story as well. But yeah,
Beautiful.
But I'm only going to claim English.
Well, thank you so much for your incredible time and for your incredible story, incredible mahi. We're so privileged to be able to hear the story and to be able to sit and hear kind of this incredible mahi that you're doing in Poneke. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone from the audience you enjoyed. Thank you so much. Definitely get involved. Very, very keen to see more Kiwi coming back. So thank you so much.
Kia ora.
Sweet. Kia ora. You can cut between stuff, eh?
Yes.
There is like a language answer as well I could give, which is in one of the symbols that we came up for the project is this tohu around the kiwi claw.
Oh, yes.
And there was a Whaia Therese at Taranaki Whanui was telling us that the symbol in sign, so another language, for Wellington is W,
yeah.
except in the wind. and the symbol for Kiwi is this for the Nutu, for the long beak. And so the symbol for capital Kiwi is like the...
Beautiful. Thank you very, very, very much. And thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Ka kite.